We're very excited today to have Noam Badin here come and speak. But I want to introduce Randy Kessler. Why don't you come up? Randy Kessler is the head of Stand With Us, right, Northwest. He took Rob Jacobs' place, for any of you that know who Rob Jacobs was. And we are just so appreciate Stand With Us. For a long time, El Shaddai was supporting Stand With Us as well. We definitely always support Stand With Us, both in heart as well as financially when we can. But I'm just so thankful for Stand With Us and all the different speakers that you guys bring to the community. And I know several here have gone to Stand With Us events that they have. But at this time, I want to introduce Randy Kessler.
Thank you very much, Pastor Mark. It's been wonderful in the 3 months that I've been the director of Stand With Us Northwest region, getting to know even more deeply the community here, the warmth of the community here, and frankly, your support has been invaluable. So for those of you who don't know, we've had in our short time 3 events. So there's one that has happened, which has been our shaliach, or our emissary from Israel, a gentleman named Udi Asraf. Thank you. We had Udi come and speak maybe a month and a half ago. We have Noam here tonight. And then coming up in a little bit less than 2 weeks, on October 30th, we actually have Udi coming back along with another young Israeli for a tour called Between the Lines, Stories of Young Israelis. So I hope that we'll see many of you there. It's now my pleasure to introduce Noam Badin. So Noam is a friend of mine. He was introduced to me by one of our previous Israeli emissaries, and he has a very interesting story. He's an Israeli native, but the son of 2 American-born parents, so you'll find his English impeccable. And he's born in Tzfat, which is in the north of Israel, and raised and currently lives near Efrat, which is in Judea. That's the southern part of the Judea and Samaria region, which is also known as the West Bank. 10 years ago, he founded something called the Sderot Media Center and has presented the situation of roughly 1 million people that live in the southwestern part of Israel. So Sderot, the western Negev, as well as southern Israel that are under constant rocket fire by Hamas militants in Gaza. Noam has also presented to the United States Congress, the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, as well as to many parliaments and Israeli embassies around the world. He also speaks prevalently at campuses across the United States, and I feel very privileged to call him my friend. And before I introduce him and call him up, actually, I want to say one more thing about Noam, which is that he is also a photojournalist, a storytelling photojournalist who has chronicled the situation of the Dead Sea in Israel, the lowest point on earth, straddling the border between Israel and Jordan. And so you will hear Noam's interesting story in both of those areas as I call him up tonight. Noam, please come and join us.
Okay, shalom everyone. Shalom. It really is an amazing time being here this evening. It's still 5 o'clock in the morning back at home. I'm still pretty much a jet lag over here. First of all, thank you so much, Randy, for the last second moment and doing anything you can to bring me and welcoming over here. I tell you, this is the first time being in Seattle. It's a really great warmth being here. Thank you so much, Pastor Mark, for having me over. I really feel part of this big family over here, and I'll be honest, I have a lot of history here in Seattle. My grandmother she was born and raised in Seattle. She was married in Seattle. My grandfather was deported here to Seattle during the World War. That's how they met and got married. So it's a very personal place to be here, and I'm looking forward for building up relationships. My thing is always reaching out to the next generation. If you ask me, I think overall, the way of giving the presentation today, our main focus today has to be how do we educate the next generation about Israel? This is our struggle today. This propaganda war we've been fighting, this spiritual war we've been fighting firsthand, seeing how this affects people's minds and hearts throughout the world, to connect it to this very unique situation of living on the Gaza border under rocket fire for many years. We've seen how deep this actually goes on a personal level, on the national level, what it brought me to be doing as a photojournalist, war photographer, and how I counter myself eventually. And it's a great honor. I have limited time to try expressing to you guys my decade of Israeli storytelling photography. And I'll try doing that here this evening to share with you my experiences and my stories. So let me just begin. So whoever does not know, let me just show you this. I like to call this the controversial map of Israel. I use this map in front of diplomats and foreign press. And I specifically use this for our cause to show the areas that have been under rocket fire for the past decade, ever since Israel has pulled out from the Gaza Strip August 2005. If you guys did not hear the political aspect and learning about the modern history of Israel, Israel pulled out from the Gaza Strip, giving what's called land for peace in August 2005, being the only country, by the way, that ever gave land for peace after winning a war. It's a 45-minute drive to Tel Aviv, the center of Israel. It's like an hour and 15 to Jerusalem. This whole region has been under rocket fire for the past over 15 years. I'll be honest, anybody here heard about Sderot beforehand in this crowd? Okay. The truth is, yesterday I was in Spokane, and I was on campus. We had like 60 students, more or less. The first question I ask is, who here heard about Sderot? So I had maybe 2 students raising up their hands. Who heard about Gaza? Every single person raising up their hands. And up until today, to try giving a balance to that story, it's that this became our challenge. I've been speaking on college campuses throughout North America. I'll be honest, coming here and be feeling welcomed and feeling very comfortable to speak and to talk. I'll be honest, when I speak today, many places I have to have a bodyguard outside of the room. As you can see, I'm a scary-looking guy speaking in front of you. I've been threatened not once and not twice. I've been demonized visually. It's amazing experiencing this polarity becoming anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, anti-Semitism arising. And to connect it to this region over here is something amazing to see how everything is connected. Literally, what happens in our region impacts throughout the entire world, especially on college campuses. I'll talk about the media information war that we've been fighting on the front lines of it all and explain how this affects back over here. Like I said, I have a very limited time to share a lot, so we'll try doing everything at the same time. But before that, just to start our story today, how I started actually doing this kind of work, believing this is the last thing I thought I'll be doing professionally. But my story begins over here in this town called Sderot. It's the closest city to the Gaza Strip. It's a little hard to explain to people that once a rocket is being fired from Gaza towards Sderot, in the whole western Negev region, we have more or less 15 seconds or less to run for your life. And the question is, how do you express to people having 15 seconds? What can you possibly do in 15 seconds? This became our challenge to share with people that experience, how every single person actually has experienced this, having 15 seconds or less to run for your life. Last time we had a siren going off was last week. We had a siren going off. It was a false alarm. A little hard to explain to people. Whoever lives in this region, it does not matter if it's a false alarm or if a rocket falls in open areas, what's so-called. Once you have the one siren go off, you're sure the rocket is aiming more towards you. You still have 15 seconds or less to run for your life. The question, who do you protect first? That moral dilemma on a very personal level as well. And I'll share with you right now the video called 15 Seconds. This is the #1 YouTube video. If you just search for 15 seconds Sderot, this is the #1 video. It's a pretty intense, dramatic video. This is part of my footage. This is me sharing, expressing myself in front of you, what I've been documenting and dealing with half of my adult life, dealing with this rocket reality up until today, basically. I lived in this town for 6 years. I do not live there anymore. I'll talk about my personal story as we go on. This footage you'll be seeing here right now, you'll be seeing a lot of the footage. We sent a video crew to the schools on the first day of school a couple of years ago. We went to document the children, asking them how's it to be going back to school. We knew that something is going to be happening that morning. Again, it's a very strategic timing to be firing rockets on the first day of school. This is part of my tactics learning in the army with Hezbollah, the second strongest terrorist organization in the world, having actually more missiles combined than most European countries combined together. Hezbollah has more missiles than that today. It's a whole different topic. Anyways, filming the children, asking them how's it going back to school. We had sirens going off. You'll be hearing the siren going off. It's a loudspeaker with a woman's voice singing in Hebrew, Tseva Adom, which means color red, red alert. We had like 7 explosions into the town. And we filmed the children running for their lives into the school itself. And a lot of this footage was broadcast around to the world for the first time through Fox News, CNN, BBC. And even in Israel, the newspapers the next morning wrote about what does it mean to have 15 seconds or less to run for your life. So let's just start with this very dramatic video, just showing how intense this can actually get. And for me to express myself, what I've been through personally, documenting this kind of scenes, the dramatic human drama, and we'll start our evening with this video.
ממתי אתה פה מהבוקר? מה אתה יכול לספר לי על הפעילות?
שתעשרות כאלה.
ואיך היה היום? אתה יכול לספר מה היה?
בסדר, היה טרפלינות.
וואו.
Okay, so that's the 15-second video. I think now that I have everyone's attention, this is when I could start all over from the beginning. Shalom, everyone. My name is Noam Bedin. I moved to this town a bit over 11 years ago. I've personally experienced hundreds, if not thousands, of rockets exploding into this town, into the region itself. I came to realize, I think the concept explained to people how this became one of the only regions in the entire Western world where we have rockets, missiles are being fired and threatening civilian populations for the past over a decade. And somehow people did not even hear about this. It's something amazing for me to realize. And seeing how deep this actually goes, how we have a certain kind of rocket reality which somehow became acceptable, that's part of the story as well. To explain how unique this actually is on the human level, on the human side of the story, do not take my word on this. On your next visit to Israel, I urge people to come visit this region, just talking to the people, be amazed to realize how literally every single person in this town, in this community and region, has the experience of a rocket exploding nearby. Every person could be telling you, literally every single person could be telling you how the 2 seconds before, 2 minutes before, them themselves or their children were standing right at that point where the rocket has exploded, depending on a Russian roulette reality, depending on luck, coincidences, on live miracles, is the hardest thing to express to people what became sometimes a daily routine life. And I personally feel the moral obligation as an observant Jew. We have what's called in Aramaic, Birsum Anisa, which means we have the ability to expose the miracle. And that's what drove me for many years we have what it takes to capture those scenes, those first scenes before and after the rocket attacks, and to share that with the world. And that's what drove me for many years doing this kind of work, and seeing how far things can actually reach by doing so brought me that there is hope doing this kind of advocacy work to try changing the current situation overall. When I moved to this town, by the way, I moved to this town just to become a student. There's a very big communication college in this right outside of Sderot. It's called the Sapir College. That's why I moved there, not knowing too much about this rocket reality. And even before I go on how the news broadcast in Israel, we're talking about the rocket fire. Let me ask over here, being literally on the other side of the world, how do you guys get your information about Israel or about the conflict? What would you guys tell me overall? Facebook? What else? Internet. Be more specific. Israel Times, okay. The what? Okay, Jerusalem Post, Jewish Live TV. Okay, I mean, look, I asked this basic, we always go back to this basic question, because, I mean, if you think about it for a second, what we know today, on the other side of the world is usually what we hear, see, and read through media elements. This is usually our perspective outside on reality in what's called bubble. And I can tell you guys that the news broadcast in Israel, not back over here, but in Israel, then, and also today, once a week or once in 2 weeks, or then every single day, we're summing up the news reports in 5 seconds, saying how 2 Qassam rockets, that's the name of the rocket, how 2 Qassam rockets fell nearby Sderot. No physical damages, no injuries, no harm done. Maybe 2 people are treated for shock. And moving on to the weather report. And the question is, can those 5 seconds of rating back in Israel, can we get an understanding about this very powerful human drama living under rocket fire, this rocket threat? Can those 5 seconds of rating explain to us how we have a very unique situation, a reality that somehow became acceptable of rockets being fired towards civilian populations? I mean, bring it back to home. If it's 2 years ago, I came back from San Diego campuses. Nothing like coming to the States and having that scenario. What's on the borders with San Diego? Okay, more specific, what town? Tijuana, exactly, Tijuana. So you tell me, what would happen if only one rocket be fired from Tijuana towards San Diego, what the response would be? And the truth is, there's no really reason to be answering that, because there is no country in the world that will tolerate even one rocket being fired towards its territory. Why don't you guys tell me, according to the different media elements you just mentioned right now, how many rockets have been fired from Gaza towards Israel ever since we gave what's called Land for Peace in August 2005, only according to what I've been listening, hearing, and reading about? What would you guys tell me? 15,000? Okay, it's been over 24,000 rockets being fired from Gaza towards Israel in the past decade. In one sentence analysis, what's been happening in the past decade, it took 7 years to disengage from the Gaza Strip, throwing out the Jewish communities from the Gaza Strip and the Israeli army bases. It took 7 years since that point, putting most Israeli population under Iranian missile fire from Gaza. That's in just one sentence what's been happening in the past decade. So the human side of the story that started off in Sderot impacted the most Israeli population overall. Going back to the story of just moving to Sderot, up until today, by the way, seeing how I've been affected personally, as I go onto the flights, it's amazing. It always hits me when I leave the country. As I'm falling asleep on the plane, so you have the stewardess right about to give you like the security alert, what do you do, where to jump out, where to put the belts on or whatever. And as she starts talking, she has the microphone, right? It turns on and you have the of the microphone. And once you have the going off, I jump up and my heart starts beating like crazy, because in your mind, you're sure that's a siren about to go off, having the of the microphone. Or if it's driving into a city, up until today, what goes through my mind personally as I drive into Sderot or traveling around the country, around the world, traveling, once I enter a city with my car, automatically I think about how I have to put down the window sheet of the car, I have to turn down the music, I have to take off my seatbelt, because you're always alert to jump out of your car. Hearing a mother describing to me like a year and a half ago that while she was driving around the city, she had a siren go off. She jumped out of her seat of the car. She went to her back seat, needing to choose what child to grab on first, so she can run as close as she can towards the wall, towards the shelter. This moral dilemma: who do you protect first? All the way to that extent, dramatic scene. Many people have those kinds of stories. I mean, just imagine sitting like this, okay, in a congregation in the Western Negev, Right now we have a siren go off. You're expected, if this place is not protected, you have to get off your seats, run through maybe one door, and hoping to reach a secured room less than 15 seconds. So it's constantly what goes through your mind, okay? The small things that make the entire difference. Taking a shower. Once you have the water running on you, you won't hear the siren going off. So you have someone inside the shower room. Once the siren goes off, they grab the person, take the person out. Does not matter how dressed you are, by the way. If it's jogging around the city, you cannot have earplugs because you're always waiting to hear the siren going off. It's endless, the small details that actually make the entire difference. Having said that, it's a beautiful city. People are moving into Sderot today. There's actually a waiting list to move into the kibbutzim, into the communities on the Gaza border. The story of Sderot has just transformed, literally. It's just amazing to see how it's going to be doubling itself in the next 2 years or so. And that's part of the very powerful Israeli story. I'll be showing to you right now this mentality to try coping with very extreme situations sometimes, but somehow maintaining a daily routine life and worshiping life as much as you can. The more we go into it, the Sderot story is a symbol, is a macrocosmic of the entire Israeli society. And more than that, today, it's actually, if you ask me, the front lines of the Western civilization today, for what it's standing for, living on the borders of this ideology of radical Islam. It's amazing that in the Western world, a little hard to explain what that actually means, this ideology of glorifying terrorism, worshiping death. What does that actually mean today? This is literally the education that's embedded, the whole new generation and population 1 mile away from Israel, all the way to that extent. Let me show you something which is very powerful. For me to define this entire unique rocket reality in just one photograph is right over here, this picture of my desktop. What do you guys see here? What do you have there on the right? This is a sheltered caterpillar that was built for children. Okay? And on the left side is a playground. What other country in the world, by the way, what other frame like this you would actually find any other place in the world having a playground and a creative bomb shelter in the same photograph, while at the same time, what's happening there in the background? Crane. As an eyewitness, people are choosing to move into this reality. So that's for me in one picture to define this very unique rocket reality, which does not make sense, what somehow became a daily routine life, coping with this, having this resilience of moving into, no matter all the obstacles. And again, every person moving to this town, to this region, understand it's not a question of if, it's a question of when is the next rocket escalation. Literally, when's the next rocket escalation? There's a whole topic on its own. If we had time, we could get into it. But the last Gaza war, seeing how this affected throughout the entire world, is amazing to try to explaining about what is it we're up against, especially on college campuses. Over 520 anti-Israel events on college campuses that 1 year after the Gaza war. Anti-Semitism, by the way, went up over 400% since that Gaza war. Places like in Belgium, England, France, a lot has to do with the results that comes out during conflict. Maybe we'll talk about that as we go on. Let's go back to the Israeli resilience, talking about the children impact as well. Up to 94% of children in this area are suffering from symptoms of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. If I quote Dr. Adriana Katz, she is the director of the mental health center, she goes how there is no post-trauma in Sderot. This is still very much traumatic, meaning it could be very quiet for 2-3 weeks. Once you have that one siren go off, you go back to the first day you've experienced a rocket explode nearby, and you still have 15 seconds or less to run for your life. You're sure the rocket is aiming more towards you. We're very far from any kind of solutions right now. Even though it has been more relatively quiet, it's very far from any solution right now. And what we did, I have a very short video that we documented. I'll describe the video as we're watching it, but I showed this video at the Human Rights Council in Geneva a couple of years ago. By the way, does anybody know what country is leading the Human Rights Council in Geneva today? Close. Saudi Arabia. By the way, in just one sentence, the differences about Saudi Arabia and Israel. In Israel, we have more women pilots than Saudi Arabian women drivers. That's in one sentence the differences we're talking about, and this country is leading the Human Rights Council in Geneva. Again, another topic on its own to be talking about what is the UN, what countries are sitting in these bodies. that have an agenda to put 90% of resolutions against Israel. Anyways, this is what's called the Goldstone Report. Anybody here heard about this report? The Goldstone Report. This is after the first Gaza war in January 2009. 3 summers ago was our third military operation. It was a completely biased against Israel. And because being the only media center in southern Israel to portray the human side of the story, we were asked by the UN and the Israeli Foreign Ministry to represent the unofficial Israeli perspective. So I flew to Geneva. I had a half an hour presenting 8 years being under rocket fire. How do you do that? Almost impossible. I felt a lot of responsibility having up to 1 million Israelis presenting at the time in southern Israel. I had a long red ponytail. That was my trademark in Sderot. It was not easy presenting in half an hour this side of the story. And I presented a live documentation about just being there at the right time, the right place. To check this out, this is how I presented the live story, and I'll talk while we're watching the video. Okay, so these are 2 kindergartens that were hit during summer vacation. You can see literally 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. That's the playground behind the kindergarten itself. That's the rockets. Over 20 types of rockets, by the way. Different sizes, different lengths, different colors. They indicate the different terrorist organization that takes pride of firing these rockets. An impact of one rocket can reach a radius of 300 feet of complete damage. Basically, this entire room. Shrapnel that goes through almost anything as possible. Now, because this is summer vacation, so no children were in the kindergarten. Therefore, no physical damages, no injuries. This did not get any kind of news reports because no one was actually injured. Then you have curious children. They come to see what just happened. The first casualties of rockets were children under the age of 5, being under rocket fire first thing in the morning. And they follow the security officer with the rocket. And they go back to the place where the rocket exploded, and they pick up pieces of the rocket like a marble collection. This is Kibbutz Saad. It's a community on the Gaza border. These are the protections over the kindergartens, those thick concretes on top of the kindergartens.
ילדים, מה אנחנו עושים כשיש ספר? אז זה היה יותר בלהט, הילדים היו עומדים כאן בחצר, היו ממש מכריזים, צבע אדום, ממש היו בכוננות כזו. היו כאן ילדים, היינו רואים אותם מכינים מיגון בחצר, היו חופרים, כן, ממש היו ערוכים, מתכוננים וערוכים לצבע אדום, אבל היום ברוך השם, פחות בגלל שזה פחת בזמן האחרון. זה פחת, ברוך השם.
גם כל המיגונים פה זה חדש, נכון?
כן, הנה, בבקשה.
Look at the children in the background. How they know exactly where to run for shelter. We only got a few seconds left. What just happened here? What did you guys notice once the siren went off? What did you guys notice? There are many small details. Okay, before that, we saw the children knowing exactly where to run for shelter. What did you notice about the kindergarten teacher? She's calm. How can you stay calm when the rocket is about can actually maybe explode right next to you? Does she have any choice? She has to remain calm. okay? Because the way she reacts, the children will basically just imitate her. So she has to remain calm, and she's the last one into the bomb shelter as well. There's a lot of the training that a lot of teachers and parents actually get in this region is how to deal with emergency times. Again, this is taught also around the country, around the world, is teaching the population how to stay calm for the children's sake. And as they enter the bomb shelter, what'd you notice? There's a countdown, right? 10, 9, 8. And what happened when they reached 0? What did you notice? Okay, they start singing a song. Why did they start singing a song? Okay, yeah, being very realistic. They start singing out loud so they won't hear the explosion of the rocket exploding right next to them. Okay, so there you have a very short video with no physical damages, no injuries, no harm done, that sometimes shows you the daily routine that children have to be living through. And this very powerful Israeli mentality to somehow cope with this kind of situation, with emergency time. This was taught to children all the way to the northern part of Tel Aviv region, up to like 50 miles away from Gaza. They were under missile fire 3 summers ago. We're teaching children during summer vacation that while you're running for your life, once a siren goes off, you should put a game together or a song together to try maintaining a daily routine life and worshiping life. And that's part of the story, to somehow cope and to contrast during the emergency times. And what I have here also to show you guys firsthand, which is pretty powerful, the experience actually moving to this town was waking up every single morning with a siren going off. Can anybody guess why? Having a siren going off first thing in the morning? What happens first thing in the morning? We all wake up, right? And parents on the way, people are on the way to shop, to work, and the children are on the way to schools, into the kindergartens. That was my experience moving into this town every single morning. Siren going off, followed by an explosion. I came to realize that many of the schools in this entire region, their first lesson was a drawing lesson, giving children a platform to express themselves through drawings. And I collected many of these drawings. I'll pass this around to you guys to see this from up close. And what's amazing, again, having every single person experience this, having a way to self-express yourself through arts of media, the results you actually get is just amazing concept. This is what we have today to represent our story. So you have, a regular house, tree, and rockets, and every single drawing. That's part of the story, which is very unique, but at the same time, very special for us to represent this human side of the story. Look how much expression actually have in this drawing. Or look at this. The sun here is sad, people here are smiling. That's really the small details also in the drawings you could really notice. There's one thing I want to point out which is pretty powerful. So look at this drawing over here. And look at this one. This is really powerful. We had a campaign in Sderot, in this town. 1 year after the first Gaza war, we had 9-year-olds in this town, Sderot, were drawing pictures and letters to children in Gaza, saying how they're dreaming to living here side by side, playing the same playground, hoping for a better future. What's amazing to realize, if you think about it for a second, these 9-year-olds do not know any other reality except running for their lives, rockets explosions, 15 seconds to the explosions, but still having this hope of living here side by side. That truly is the Israeli mentality and education, to always try compromising, trying living here side by side, while at the same time, literally in the same time this past summer, over 50,000 children were trained in military summer camps of Hamas. That's the difference as we're talking about societies. What is it you're teaching the next generation with? Unfortunately, a lot to explain also to Americans. A lot of what's called the American aid, international aid, the foreign aid, hundreds of millions of dollars go to these UN, UNRWA schools, educating a whole new generation to keep them in the same conditions, which is completely full of incitement, a lot to get into the differences of societies. Do not get me wrong, I think conflict is very complex. You always have gray areas in conflict, civilians on both sides being harmed, if you ask me, much more suffering today happening in the Gaza Strip. But the intentions and policies of each side, that is completely black and white. And seeing it from Sderot, one of the most bombarded cities since World War II, how it's actually the revolution of this city, of this place. Over 2,500 apartments were sold in the past 2.5 years. And seeing the growth of this region, worshiping life as much as you can. I actually have pictures over here that I took a couple of weeks ago to show you guys is showing the growth of the city. And what became for the city, you have, these are protected schools, these huge schools that are very thick with concrete around it, and they have bomb shelters throughout the entire city, throughout the entire yard of the school, so the children always have a safe room to actually go to. The first thing that were actually ever protected completely were the schools themselves, because school was the most important thing for children to have a daily routine. Like I showed you before, the kindergarten, the sheltered caterpillar. This is the must site. This is where we show most of our groups that come to this place, having a very unique bomb shelter with the cranes in the background, building out those new neighborhoods. Look at this. This is a drummer made out of rockets. A lot of arts came out from this region. There's a whole factory calling it from rockets to roses or to doves, and using it as something which is more positive. And you have all this huge apartment building at the background. What's this on top? You guys recognize this symbol over here? This is a Chanukiah. This is a menorah made out of rockets. And every single year it's lit. It's lit in one of the highest buildings in Sderot. This is the panoramic view of Sderot. You'll not believe how beautiful it actually is, really is. You can see also in the background all these cranes. And having something that was used for darkness, for terrorism, used to light up the entire city, is something amazing to be a part of, to see that firsthand. Very, very powerful. And that's part of the message. Again, the whole resilience concept is very powerful to show people today what became from this town and the growth coming from the city is something amazing to express how this town became the microcosm of the entire Israeli society. Very, very, very powerful. Now, let me ask you guys, what do you think is the solution for the rocket fire? What can Israel do to prevent rocket fire? What do you think Israel has done to dealing with the rocket fire? It's an open question. I'll show you also what became the solutions for it. What do you think? Okay, Iron Dome. Okay, anybody hear about the Iron Dome beforehand? Okay, this is a military battery that fire downs middle and long-range rockets. This is actually a lot from the help of the U.S. military aid to Israel. A lot of, by the way, nothing like going to subways in New York and seeing these huge posters, stop U.S. military aid to Israel, not mentioning the hundreds of billions of dollar trade with Saudi Arabia. Egypt gets a bit less than Israel when that country violates huge crimes against humanity, human rights violations. All this focus is put upon Israel. Who actually knows that 75% of military aid to Israel is invested back here in the States, giving thousands of jobs to American workers? That's besides the point. So this Iron Dome system has changed strategically, confronting Hamas-controlled Gaza. 3 summers ago, we had 9 batteries of these Iron Dome systems. I'll show again the map, making things very clear. Is this the solution, the Iron Dome, even though it has changed, confronting? Look at this map again. Having up to 50 miles from Gaza, you have hundreds of middle-sized cities and towns. It's always a Russian roulette. What city, what region do you protect now with the Iron Dome? Simply not enough Iron Domes to protect the entire region. It's a Russian roulette. What city do you protect, literally? And second of all, it's not suitable, it's not military used for the Gaza border. Anybody guess why? Way too close. 15 seconds is not enough time to do anything. No matter how much Israel is very much advanced in technology and high-tech, Israel is considered what's called the startup nation. You know, a lot of technology today out there in the world, if it's our cell phones, if it's a computer, the chips coming from Israel itself, no matter how much you're advanced in this whole technology and medicine and et cetera, nothing can prevent a rocket being fired 1 to 3 miles away. So if the Iron Dome cannot protect this region, what do you think became the solution? If not the Iron Dome, not these batteries to fire down rockets in the middle of the air. Yeah. Okay, pray for the real peace. What else? Okay, we'll talk about that, how complex it actually is, dealing with the rocket fire from Gaza, which is a very good point. Another measure, let me show you what Israel has done, what kind of measures Israel has done to protect its citizens. This is the point that needs to be made. Does anybody know what happened 3 summers ago during the Gaza war? This is the most critical point, especially in college campuses, to educate the students, because I'm experiencing up until today, if we did not know how to balance that out, what just happened, almost nothing else we could actually get across. Does anybody know the death toll? What happened during the Gaza war on both sides? Because this is the point. This is why this became a media information war. Anybody have any clue or guess? On the Gazan side, it was over 2,000. What it seems as over 2,000. On the Israeli side, it was 74. When 68 were Israeli soldiers. What it seems as 6 Israeli citizens compared to 2,000 on the other side of the scale. A huge disbalance of the result. How do we explain what just happened over here? This is the core. The result of these conflicts in our region impacts throughout the entire world. How do we balance that out? Sometimes I have 5 minutes, half an hour. This became our challenge up until today. So let me show you one of the first reasons on the Israeli side why there are less physical damages on the Israeli side is exactly this. Okay, we'll start with this, just showing you visually for the first time the measures Israel has done to protect the citizens, which is one of the reasons why you have less physical damages on the Israeli side.
Since the Gaza war in January 2009, Israel has invested $500 million shekels in building 5,000 new bomb shelters. This project, spread over 3 years, is like no other in the world. Wandering around Sderot today, you would be amazed at the amount of building going on in the town. Entire neighborhoods are being turned into construction zones, building 3- and 4-story high bomb shelters attached to old apartment buildings. SMC has been sharing this unique image and experience with thousands of visitors from around the globe. Seeing is believing. The bomb shelter capital of the world. Sderot being the only town in the 21st century where an entire civilian population has been targeted and threatened for the past decade by thousands of Qassam rockets fired from Gaza. Visit Sderot and experience this reality for yourself. It's a little less than an hour drive from Tel Aviv and a little more than an hour from Jerusalem. See what Israel has done to protect their citizens from rocket fire by Hamas-controlled Gaza. Learn about the global consequences of unbalanced media coverage on the Arab-Israeli conflict, while at the same time, listen to the human side of the story about life and hope for a better future of peace and security on Israel's borders.
We host thousands of people each year, mainly, I would say 90% are students and youth movements, for them to experience firsthand this very powerful human story and teaching them, showing them firsthand about what this town is representing. And you heard about the figure. Overall, it's been over $500 million invested only for bomb shelters, up to like 4.5 miles away from Gaza. It's a huge amount only for bomb shelters. And the question is, seeing those images, is this stopping rockets being fired? Is this undermining what became acceptable of rockets being fired towards civilian populations? So as you can see very clearly, this is a very big Band-Aid being put upon a very big open wound, not dealing with the roots of the problem. That's one reason we have less physical damages on the Israeli side, because Israel has protected its citizens as much as it can by billions of dollars overall for protections, Iron Dome systems, bomb shelters, a new defense systems underneath the Gaza Strip, on the borders, to prevent tunnels, to go into the kibbutzim, which was the main strategic threat in the past couple of years. Focus, how do we deal with the tunnel threat? Gaza, Hamas, they actually got professionals from North Korea and from other countries to learning how to use these terror tunnels as a major strategic threat to Israel. Over $1.5 billion investment in this tunnel industry. mainly money coming from the international community for Gaza, to build up Gaza, a lot to get into. Over $5.2 billion were raised to rebuild Gaza after the first Gaza war. This last war, over $5 billion, where the money actually goes to. Well, according to Probs magazine, Hamas became the second richest terrorist organization in the world. And a lot allows it to take into account where money actually goes to. Like I said, a lot to get into. Why is it so hard dealing with the rocket fire from Gaza? Let's try showing you. Let's see if this works. Okay, these are tilted and destroying mosques in Gaza. If you just go to Google images and write Gaza mosques, these are the images you can actually get today. There's actually more updated photos. So you can imagine how one photograph of a destroyed mosque and a Hamas flag, what kind of sympathy Gaza, Hamas can actually get worldwide, but having no clue what just happened a couple seconds beforehand. And there's one statistic to try getting across to people. What is it we're up against on our own borders, like no other country in the world today, dealing with terrorism on its own borders, is exactly this. According to the Air Force commander of Israel, 97% of rockets are being fired from among civilian populations in Gaza. Meaning the rockets are being fired behind homes, behind residential areas, behind neighborhoods, schools, UN schools, hospitals, mosques towards Israel. This is a live documentation of a rocket being fired from a mosque. Meaning if Israel has to defend its citizens, by pinpointing where the rocket is being fired, by doing so, most chances, you'd have a civilian infrastructure, a religious institution being destroyed, being harmed, and more civilians being harmed. And therefore, the term in the media is called only when it bleeds, it leads. Only then media takes notice. You have the entire focus of the world media on the result, but do not have the obligation to show what happened a couple seconds beforehand. So 97% deliberately rockets being fired from civilian populations. Actually, the most sophisticated missiles are fired towards Tel Aviv, the center of Israel. If you guys had a wild guess, where do you think the rockets have been fired from in Gaza? What is the most strategic civilian place we can imagine in the Gaza Strip? The Shiva Hospital in Gaza. The Hamas headquarters actually are in the Shiva Hospital's bunkers. This is what we're dealing with. One of the most darkest elements in the world are becoming more and more popular in political parties on campuses worldwide. Also here in the States. And that's the most outrageous aspect to understand. What is it we're dealing with today? This Hamas, a terrorist organization, goes out for genocide on their charter. That's a lot to explain. This ideology of radical Islam 1 mile away from us. And that's part of the media information war that we're fighting every single time to try balancing that out. It's our huge responsibility. But what we do have is a very powerful human story presenting just so much more than just a town being under rocket fire. Before I'll conclude my main Sderot story, which is my main story today, does anybody have any idea why do people still live in this town? Why are people moving into the city? It's a legitimate question, and it's not that obvious. What do you guys think? Okay, families. Sorry? Okay, but why would people still live in Sderot? Less expensive, very good point. Very good point. Huh? Okay, available housing. Okay, very good, yeah, because they have a sponsored bomb shelter. Very good points, yeah. I'll be honest, this is the question I would ask families first thing in the morning. Again, part of my routine is literally arriving every single morning. For 3 years, I had my camera on my shoulder, using it as a weapon to document the human side of the story. And I'll get to the family, I'll sit down. After documenting what just happened, I'll ask the families. Eventually, I'll ask, why are you guys still living here? I'll get 3 different levels to that answer. The first level is because the real estate went down at the time. It went down 50%. So you were not able to sell or rent out your apartment. You're pretty much stuck in the town. Okay, this is a working class environment, the social economics, a middle and low income. People are not able to afford. Simple as that. Second level to that, people that were able to afford to leave actually left Sderot and then moved to the nearest city, like Ashkelon, Netivot, Beersheva, Ashdod, the other major cities in southern Israel. They've been under missile fire there as well. So eventually they left and they went back to Sderot, getting a sponsored bomb shelter by the government. And the third reason I'll get from people, from families, up until today, which is starting to answer what we see here in the background. People actually tell me up until today that they're not leaving their homes now, because if they leave their homes now, these rockets are going to be going on to the next town. It really is amazing for me as a young adult to understand what this town today is standing for. What's amazing to realize, by the way, who actually lives in this city? Who actually lives in this region? People are forgetting that Israel is literally Jews coming from over 100 countries, nationalities from around the world, coming back to the ancient historical biblical homeland, which is a miracle on its own in the 20th century. And Sderot represents that. You have, Sderot was established in 51 to 53, is immigration from Jews coming from North Africa, from the Muslim Arab countries. They were kicked out from these countries. And they were settled, a lot of them, in this area. Jews coming from Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Yemen, Iraq, Iran, moving as a refugee camp at the beginning, then moved on to a small little town. In the past 35 years, we have Jews coming from former Soviet Union countries, from Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Jews. Since 2006, Jews coming from Northeast India, Myanmar, Peru. We call them the Lost Tribes. In Hebrew, it's Bnei Menashe, from the Menashe tribe. We have over 50 Muslim Arab families living in Sderot. 50 Muslim Arab families living in the town Sderot. They actually fled Gaza. They gave information to Israel, so they fled Gaza, went to live, Israel resettled them in Sderot itself. We have a couple of Christians living in Sderot. Over 1,000 Sudanese, Eritreans, Africans, they immigrated to this part of the region. All the kibbutzim, all the communities around Sderot and the Gaza border, communities coming from Argentina, Brazil, from all the Latin American countries. So overall, getting across to people, having a diversity of people's backgrounds, beliefs, behavior, living here peacefully together, being targeted only because they're considered to be living in Israel, in the land of Israel. That's basically the message, what this town is representing. I'll be honest, traveling around the world, literally around the world, speaking and presenting as a young adult, and I don't want to sound too dramatic. There's one thing I've learned is, with no doubt, Israel right now is one of the only countries in the world that its legitimacy as a state is being questioned. Our human rights for self-determination as a Jewish state has been undermined like never before. It has a lot to do with that first question: how do we get our information, and seeing how this affects people's minds and hearts throughout the world, especially the younger generations. This is exactly what we're up against today. And it's our obligation to shout out loud that we have every single moral, international, legitimate, historical, biblical rights just to live in Israel. And I'll explain right now what brought me to do this kind of work onto the next level. But that was my story and experience, how deep this actually goes, and the whole resilience aspect on the national level, on the personal level. And my personal story is what I have over here. This is my photo album, my first photo album. And this is from me going into the families' homes. I called it "The Jewish Symbols in the Shadow of Terror." I took this very personal. Arriving to the families, I always focused with my camera on the Jewish symbols to try and make things a bit more personal. These are the Shabbat candles that we light every Shabbat. If it's synagogues that were hit by direct hits, when half an hour before, 400 people are celebrating bringing a new Torah scroll into the synagogue, half an hour before. Like I said, miraculous stories that every single person has these stories. And that was for me to express myself through photography, showing, again, the Jewish symbol specifically, making things very personal. Have you guys ever heard of the Hamsa symbol, the hand symbol? This is the Jewish luck charm that was adopted by the Jewish communities coming from North Africa. Okay? Also shows, this is my first photo gallery, was the Hamsa symbol, the hand symbol. I had all these different photographs with the hand symbol in every single home. That was for me also to show the background of the Jews living in this part of the region. This house over here, this is actually where Obama came to visit during the elections in July 2008. And that was my story, my first photo album, which was very dramatic. Took it very personal to try to express the human side of the story. And I'll be honest, doing this kind of work, chasing rockets, and hosting people almost every other day, foreign diplomats, foreign press, students that come from the entire world. It was a pretty intense kind of work. And once I got married, I needed to move on with my personal life. I'm still very much involved in Sderot, as you can see, also very emotionally involved. But I need to move on with my personal life to try giving a balance to myself and to take what I've learned from Sderot and to accomplish it to another region. What's it called? Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, the heart of Israel. Today where I live is southern part of the Judean of Jerusalem. I live here today. This is my house. This is my wife over here. This is right next to my house. This is the Herodian, King Herod's palace. And what I did is, the same way as taking a Jewish symbol, I took a 2,000-year-old monument, and in every single photograph, I have the Herodian in the background. And that was for me, one hand to give myself a contrast of capturing the beauty and magic of the land of Israel, but also having a statement saying that we have every single historical biblical rights just to live here by showing these kind of photographs. And that was my way to present my entire region through photography, having the Herodian, the highest monument of the entire Judean desert, in a more creative kind of way. And I took it upon myself in the past, it took me like 3 years to document the entire Judean desert outside of Jerusalem. And I took it upon myself to try branding all the region around Jerusalem. And that was my work for the past couple of years. And I only realized that how this was I had so much to express once I moved to this town. There's one thing I want to show. I forgot to show you guys. I call my story From Rockets to Rainbows. And why is that? Because where I live today, throughout the winter, because we're at the opening of the desert, so we have the Jerusalem hills, where we have rain all the time. Then you have the Judean desert. So we're at the opening of this. So we have rainbows throughout the entire winter. It literally is a magical place. And I noticed, this is last winter, I noticed that I would get the same adrenaline of chasing these rainbows to capture those first seconds, And I realized, oh my gosh, it's the exact same adrenaline I used to have of chasing these rockets. And that's basically the Israeli story, from both kind of extremes. On one hand, living in conflict in many aspects. At the same time, seeing the beauty and magic of the land of Israel. That was my way to present my story. From rockets to rainbows. It sounded pretty nice. But that's really showed me, only last winter I realized that. So let me just share with you my personal documentation and story and show how I've been overcoming my personal experiences and documenting the Judean desert and uplifting myself personally. Again, Judean desert is the place where King David, Jesus was walking around, and all those other prophets, Elijah, and just being there out there, it's just amazing. That first photograph you just saw, the first Christian monks in history lived in this region. People did not even know that, right next to our house. So you guys are welcome to come over, show you guys firsthand. But check this out. This was my next project, sharing with people my personal story of living out in this region, giving me my first counter, my first contrast to what I've been through for many years. Herodian, a fortified palace complex located 12 kilometers south of Jerusalem, is one of the top historical and archaeological sites of Israel. Constructed by master of architecture, the Judean King Herod, in 23 BCE, the Herodian was built as a summer palace with a panoramic view overlooking Jerusalem and the Judean desert. The Herodian is the highest peak in the Judean desert, rising nearly 2,500 feet above sea level, and can be spotted from almost every point of northern Judea and southern Jerusalem. As a photojournalist, I'm greatly inspired by the unique topography of the desert frontier. It soon became apparent that in almost every photo I captured, there in the background stood the magnificent Herodian in all its glory. In this photography show, I share some of the many photographs I have taken of this region, all having one thing in common: the Herodian. The Judean desert can be seen in spectacular full bloom and at the height of its glory from late January to mid-March. The desert bloom is dependent upon the amount of rainfall during the winter months, specifically in the Jerusalem region. Some years this natural phenomenon will last for only a few weeks, while in rain-blessed years this desert bloom can be seen for up to a few months. In 2015, due to the generous amount of rainfall, the blossoming of the Judean desert peaked at its most magnificent. Majestic mountains painted a rich green, sprinkled with carpets of wildflowers in a rainbow of brilliant colors of purple, yellow, and red. The Judean desert is only half an hour from Jerusalem. In fact, it is sometimes called the Jerusalem desert. In this journey, we will emphasize the magical blooming of the Judean desert, its thousands of years of history, and its connection to Jerusalem. Wadi Tkoa is one of Israel's most spectacular nature reserves. Situated on the African-Syrian Rift, this wadi is famous for its split mountains, exquisitely carved canyons, and well-preserved caves. It is a wondrous memorial to God's creation of heaven on earth. In the silent beauty of this spiritual scene, one can sense the inner feeling of heightened reflection and meditation as we connect with an ancient Jewish history as well as a Christian monastic origin. Sharing these moments through the lens of my camera illustrates the experience of walking in the footsteps of our ancient prophets and the monks whose spirits were nurtured here and thrived, linking the past to the modern days of the Judean desert on the outskirts of Jerusalem in the 21st century. I had so much to express myself after doing this kind of work. I did not even think twice, and I literally produced 3 photo albums. I had so much to express. Like I said, I only realized that not so long ago. This is my second album, like you saw right now, the Judean Desert, when it's blooming. And you can see in the back over here, when people like these photographs, I tell, look, this is what you could do on your next visit to Israel. We take jeeps outside of from Jerusalem, take them to the Judean Desert. I have a whole day itinerary for people to actually go experience this. And seeing literally prophecies coming true in this kind of way, when everything's just blooming, it's something amazing to be a part of, learning about the flowers for the first time. And depending about rains, you think about every single time we have rain, we just started the blessing for the rain not so long ago from last week. And everything taken into account when you're outside in the wilderness, appreciative more. And the Tkoa Valley is literally underneath our house. So you can also look at this. This opens up into 3. This is literally right next to our house over here. So like I said, you guys are welcome on your next trip. I'd love to have you over. I'll just have to tell my wife who's actually coming over, making sure that we have room for everyone. But this has been my work in the past couple of years to try branding the Judean region from what I learned in Sderot, to making things more personal, to use my photography as a tool, as a weapon, then as a war photographer, but then also showing the magic of the land and trying and touching people over here and to get them excited to come visit this region in a more exciting kind of way. And the truth is, eventually, I'll just summarize my new adventure and my new story, my new cause in life. All this has brought me to be dealing with the next cause in life. What's beyond the Judean desert? After Jerusalem, you had the Dead Sea. And basically, this became my new project, my new cause in life. I've realized that. It's actually going pretty nicely. In the past year and a half, I've been documenting the Dead Sea like never before. Whoever does not know, the Dead Sea is the lowest place on earth. It's one of the top 10 wonders of the world. It's one of the most ancient bodies of water, the saltiest bodies on earth we have today. We're losing it. It's vanishing, disappearing very fast. Those of you who have been to Israel, every time you come back, you can see with your own eyes the differences, the dramatic changes happening in this place. And I feel today very strongly that all this kind of work, doing Sderot, and then relaxing, giving a balance to myself through seeing the wonders of the Judean desert, brought me eventually to focus branding the Judean desert and working on this. So let me share you my last project, my last cause I'm dealing with today, which is pretty powerful. My main focus today, actually, is speaking up and presenting branding the Judean desert, the Dead Sea. I'm very proud to say that I'm presenting this cause next week for the first time on college campuses. You'll see for yourself, seeing the wonder, seeing the beauty of this place like never before is something amazing to experience with people. I've been the first photographer to take a boat on the Dead Sea. There's only one boat in the Dead Sea, and I've been documenting it twice a month with small delegations, and seeing this from up close, which is a phenomenal experience. Let me just share in my last 4-minute video of my next cause in life of try speaking up for the environment aspect of Israel and try saving it, and I'll talk about prophecies of this place that literally is coming true. Seeing it with your own eyes. So let's just share with you my last video of the Dead Sea in my project.
Shalom, my name is Noam Bedin, and I'm an Israeli storytelling photographer. In September 2016, at the crack of dawn, I captured this unique salt formation. As I approached it, I suddenly realized that I had already documented this same formation only 5 months earlier, while it was then mostly underwater. Starting from April 2016, I have been documenting the dramatic changes taking place on the northern Dead Sea. By January 2017, the water level had gone down 1 meter in 18 centimeters. I was shocked to see with my own eyes how fast the water level in the Dead Sea is shrinking. Currently, it is at its lowest point in recorded history. Twice a month, I go out with the only exploration boat in the northern Dead Sea. Besides photographing the incredible landscape, I measure the water level. I have always been drawn to this mysterious and magical sea, which is the lowest point on Earth. Having spent the last decade photographing all over the world and working here in Israel as a photojournalist, I am now blessed with the opportunity to focus on documenting this extraordinary location that has been nominated as a World Heritage Site. Walking on these exotic salt beaches, I can't stop thinking that I'm one of the first people ever to set foot on these newfound beaches, uncovered only weeks ago. The beaches and formations still surrounded by water are incredible treasures of this extraordinary sea. These salt treasures can be found in many shapes and layer formations: salt mosaic carpets, salt pearls, salt diamonds, salt stalactite, preserved salt caves, and salt chimneys. With all this natural beauty and magic comes the tragic part of the story. Once any treasure is no longer covered by the water, it dries out under the sun and eventually crumbles and disappears. In the 20th century, the water level of the Dead Sea went down over 25 meters, and today it is 420 meters below sea level. The estimated yearly gap between water coming into the Dead Sea and water going out through evaporation and factories pumping out the water is a staggering 600 million cubic meters of water. That's over 1.5 million cubic meters of water vanished every single day. The estimated cost of direct damage comes to $90 million a year. Scientists are saying that by the year 2050, only a little pool of salt will remain. Over the next few years, I will continue to take delegations from Israel and abroad on a unique discovery boat ride, the only one of its kind, where we will explore new geological phenomena and measure the water level. Now is the time to think about the next generation and preserve the heritage of the land of Israel for future generations.
Yes. So that's basically the from human drama to environment drama. So both having both worlds, also showing the beauty and magic of this place, but also using the drama aspect to create awareness, is a lot of resemblance to the work I've been doing in the past decade. And this unique project of documenting the 1-year time lapse, I was able to get CNN interested in joining me on the boat ride, which is coming out actually very soon, CNN Virtual Reality. But anyways, this is my kind of documentation of showing visually the very extreme dramatic changes, and being the first one to actually do this kind of project, I'm able to get a lot of interest, especially from media, decision makers. I showed this at the Knesset this past summer. So this has definitely became my new project. And for me, for my soul, is something amazing to be involved with, of preserving a part of land of Israel, which is one of the most unique places we have in the world. So you can really see this documentation from really up close. And every single month this year, I'll have a time lapse, 1-year time lapse from last year. I could always get more and more media outlets to be interested. And my dream is getting National Geographic to be a part of this. You could follow me on Instagram. Every single day I post a new photograph. I have thousands of photographs. Having a self-expressing tool like Instagram, every single day I put a new photograph. And that's my way to share people this world wonder. This is the first time I'm sure this is actually presented here in Seattle. So I'm very excited to show this to you guys. This took me like a year and a half to discover and to find this. This is a pure soul diamond that comes out from the sinkholes. It comes out like this as a cube, literally like this. So all these treasures coming out is just something amazing to be a part of, to see this from up close. The same way a real diamond is created, of hundreds of years of pressure, a salt diamond is created. If it's not me taking that, it would have been vanished and disappeared from the heat. So that's something that's every single boat ride we go on, we go to a place where people can actually literally dip their hand in and take out these salt diamonds. And I brought with me in the back over there as a nice souvenir, completely pure, comes out as a nice square like that. It's something amazing just seeing that. So again, all these wonders, again, this contrast, again, always this is really contrast. One hand, the water is receding, going down. On the other hand, all this magic is coming out from the water. And I'll be honest, the first time I did this boat ride, the first time, I'll never forget, we were walking on these shores, being the first ones probably to walk there. As we walking around on the new land that was discovered, we see these sinkholes. And in the sinkholes, we see fish, literally fish. And if you read the prophecies of the Dead Sea, which is so powerful, so emotional to be a part of, it says, Ezekiel 47, he said to me, this water flows towards the eastern region and goes down to the Arabah, where it enters the Dead Sea. When it empties into the sea, the salty water here becomes fresh. Swarms of living creatures will live wherever the river flows. There will be large number of fish because this water flows there and makes the salt water fresh. So where the river flows, everything will live. So this is basically, again, prophecies that's coming true from seeing from nature in the most natural way, something amazing to see firsthand. The truth is, it's a whole lesson what the solution is. It's the whole Middle East politics about the Dead Sea, starting with Jordan, Palestinian Authority, water coming from the Red Sea, with Saudi Arabia, water coming from the Jordan River, that's Syria, Jordan, taking water for themselves. A lot to get into, not really the time right now. But my thing is always to inspire the next generation in any way as possible. And I feel I have a tool today using the Dead Sea cause, the environment cause one hand, but also showing the beauty of one of the top wonders of the world. When I go on campus today, I would have a photo exhibition as the students go into the lecture room. I have a whole virtual reality presentation. I have these cool goggles, and I basically everybody, all the students will take out their phones, and they'll see what does that mean, 360 degrees, when they just look around and see everything around them. So I'm hoping to make things more exciting for people. Like I said, starting off the presentation, our job today is how do we educate the next generation with not only with accurate information, but touching them over here to inspire them about Israel. With all the propaganda out there, it's a very big challenge we have today. And this is our thing, is trying to touch people emotionally as well about Israel, and speaking firsthand as a person through storytelling. And for me, the photographs, this is my tools today to try speaking up. So before I forget, I give you guys the floor. What I have here is a sign-up sheet. You guys are welcome to put down your names and emails. If you guys have Facebook, just write your name as it appears on Facebook. your email. We send like once a month a newsletter. Like I said, dealing with a lot of things in Israel, we have a lot to share with people. We're not going to spam you, not to worry about that. But for us, just to keep in touch and to have a relationship, like I said, being the first time in Seattle, I definitely see a place to be returning to. I'm looking forward for that. So that's why it's important to put down your contact information. And I'll present what I have there in the back afterwards as a nice souvenir, but I have basically tools. I brought a whole bag. I'm literally overweight over here with my luggage. I have 9 flights this speaking tour, so please take all the material. So I brought a lot of photo albums with me. Those photo albums with the Herodian presenting the entire northern Judean desert in a more creative kind of way. That's for me to present my region, my controversial region, political-wise, in a more creative kind of way. I got DVDs you guys can share with your friends, your families, with the videos we saw here today, and a bit more than that. I have salt diamonds, small salt diamonds and souvenirs. I have a couple of magnets, postcards. Anything is possible for you guys to be in touch, to remember us is most crucial right now. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, I spoke a lot on many different things over here I tried presenting. Like I said, to try presenting a decade of Israeli storytelling photography is a challenge. Hopefully that was okay. But trying to show different angles of the Israeli story through the human story, that was my purpose. One hand, seeing how intense it can actually get, but on the other hand, showing the beauty of the land, getting both worlds in one place through one person. That's part of my purpose today. Always giving a counter, always giving a contrast to that, and that's what I try presenting here today. Okay, so again, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you, Pastor Mark, for having me. Thank you, Randy, for everything. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, I'd be more than happy. Here.
I was just saying, when you were talking about the Dead Sea, you indicated a natural evaporation plus people taking water out.
That's a very good point. I should have been more accurate. It's not a natural way. What's happening with all that is actually nature coming out. But this is actually man-made problem. 35% of the evaporation of the water is because of the industry, the factories pumping up the water. But the main reason for that is because the historical flow to the Dead Sea has been dried out completely. Where's the water coming from to the Dead Sea? Anybody know? From the Jordan River. Now I was actually there with CNN. Okay, this is the beginning of September. We literally saw I actually have a picture of that. We literally saw the Jordan River connecting to the Dead Sea. Look how wide it actually is. Look at this. That's it. 2.5 meters, which is around 7 feet. And like 40 centimeters deep. That's all it is. And I'm moving with my camera very soon. That's the entire Judean desert that should be flowing through, which can reach like 100 meters, 300 feet, what could be the Jordan River. So seeing that live, seeing that connection, that's the connection of the Jordan River to the Dead Sea. You actually have a connection to the historical city of Hebron, water going into the Dead Sea. It's a very small amount, but the main historical flow coming from the Jordan River almost completely dried out. And our project, my focus, looking into we're only at the beginning, but my challenge in the next decade or so, focusing on this project, is putting the focus on the roots of the problem, which is, I have a whole, again, using social media, having a hashtag restore historical flow, and putting the focus in the north of filling up the Sea of Galilee, opening up the dam, having water flourishing through the Jordan River, giving livelihood at both sides of the Jordan bank, and having water naturally coming to the Dead Sea. Unfortunately, right now, that's not really realistic because Jordan has no water, fresh water, so they'll just be pumping up all the water going to the Jordan River. All the focus right now is actually it's called the Red Dead, the Red Sea to the Dead Sea, a canal. This is the biggest project ever been done. It's going to be done about desalination of water. That's why nobody knows what's going to be the outcome of it. That's what we're talking about, at least a decade until something is going to be done, and not even that could be a solution for the Dead Sea. So it's interesting being involved with that. It's a whole Middle East lesson on its own, trying to save the Dead Sea. What I do know is, as a simple person, making things more interesting and branding it, and keeping up in the media in any way as possible, and having people coming and seeing it from up close. This is the one thing we can actually do. And seeing from Sderot, these things have an effect on the long run. On the long run, this has an effect. So this is what we're only in the beginning, and we already got a lot of interest of our work. And I'm hoping to continue doing this, getting more people supporting this cause, but also inspiring people to come visit Israel and to come to the Dead Sea and go on this boat excursion, which is very unique. There's only one boat, like I said, only 10 people. So it's a very personal, intimate experience. Seeing one of the top wonders of the world up close like that, now with a tourist bus, is a whole different experience. So making things more interesting, branding, using sightseeing seminars, photography, arts of photography. I have all the tools today to try getting this up on the radar, making things a bit more interesting for people. So this is what I'm hoping. There's a lot of work. We're only at the beginning of it. So before I forget, bring back the Soul Diamond, okay? I cannot forget that. It took me a year and a half to actually find that size, that beautiful size, the perfect square. Any questions? Yes, please.
About 40 years ago, they were talking about building a water canal from the Mediterranean, not the Red Sea, the Mediterranean, with a massive drop down. And this was supposed to be, this was going to be electricity and filling up the Dead Sea. That was like 40 years ago, and I kept wondering when is this going to take place? And it just, now they talk about the desalination plant in the lot that's just going to have the wastewater go in there. But I thought it seems like having the electricity and that would be a much bigger deal.
There's actually again, like I said, it's a whole lesson on its own, the solutions for it. But there's actually 6 different solutions where the water, what we do know is the Dead Sea has to get more water. And different projects coming from the Mediterranean Sea or coming from the Red Sea. There was a project having a direct canal from the Mediterranean all the way straight to the Dead Sea without desalination. There's having the salt water going to the Dead Sea. All the experts said that's going to ruin the Dead Sea. Same thing with the Red Sea. Even going through the process of desalination, nobody knows the effect, the chemical effect this would have on the Dead Sea. And this project, actually, the project that's been focused by the governments right now, and the only project is on the agenda, is the Red Sea to the Dead Sea. This is our Jordanian project, actually, that was pushing it. They actually raised $10 billion from the World Bank. The real story behind that is actually bringing water to Amman, which is a bit north of that. Again, the biggest project ever been done in the world for bringing up water from a sea, going through a huge amount of desalination of water, because they have no water whatsoever. Jordan's like the number 4 country in the world having the least water per capita. Once a week, they have no water in Amman, the capital of Jordan. And on the way to go through to the Dead Sea, and the amount that would go to the Dead Sea is only 10% for what it really needs. Then it'll take a couple of years to investigate if this is actually helping the Dead Sea, ruining the Dead Sea. So we're talking about a process of at least a decade until something's actually going to be done. That's why I know I chose a project that has to be focused, that I have what to do with it for on the long run. That's why we're only at the beginning of the process of it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not politically, I don't know anything about politics, but I think I heard something about the Dead Sea being near Jordan and a line, the border in the middle, and having problems, like you have this exploratory boat. Can you only go so far in the Dead Sea? And then do you have danger of bombs or what?
Good point. Here we go. Since you already asked. This is the Dead Sea. By the way, all of you, who's been to the Dead Sea before? Very nice. Do you guys know where have you been in the Dead Sea? Southern end. Look at this. You can see it with your own eyes. The southern part of the Dead Sea is not really the Dead Sea. It's pools of salt for years, actually. It's artificial. It's a Dead Sea experience, but not the real Dead Sea. So our boat is actually only in the northern parts. Actually starts from here. And our thing it's not the sailing concept of it, of being in the water. It's actually going onto beaches that there's no other way to get there except with the boats. That's why we have an exclusive ride to experience the Dead Sea and the beach of these exotic salt beaches like never before. That's a good question, because this is, it's like 16 kilometers, which is, what, 8 to 7 miles across to Jordan. Very, very close. But our thing is to explore the beaches, actually, and seeing geological phenomena that was discovered to scientists only 5 years ago. These salt chimneys, that was, I mentioned here in the video, salt chimneys is, these are formations that are discovered in the deepest oceans in the world, and now being discovered in the Dead Sea. It's an amazing thing that the way it's created, and so it's a whole geology lesson on its own. But again, like I said, the contrast, water going down and seeing all the magic coming up, something amazing to be experiencing, and photographing and documenting that is something I'm privileged and honored to be part of. So that's what we can tell. So you can see Jordan is part of it. You have on north, you have Syria. So Syria, they take water from, you can see, they take water that goes to the Jordan River. It's called the Yarmouk. They take water for Jordan, for Syria. Down the south, you can see the borders over here. One second. Yeah, you can. You see, this is the Red Sea, and this is Saudi Arabia. So water having the desalinization plant is in Aqaba on the Jordan part, because they don't have environment organizations. They could just do whatever they want. So that's why all the different countries in the Middle East are involved with the Dead Sea in a certain kind of way. And of course, nobody gets along in the Middle East. That's why it's very hard to push for any kind of solution. Like I said, the ideal solution is having water, desalinization water. There's actually plans of having a desalinization plant in Nahariya, which is up here, then having water pumping to the Kinneret, to the Sea of Galilee, which is almost a disaster, almost a geological disaster. The fact that water went all the way down. You fill up the Sea of Galilee, giving livelihood for the entire north part of Israel, and having the water flourishing to the Jordan River up to 300 feet, giving livelihood for both sides of the story of the riverbank, and having the most natural way water going to the Dead Sea. So this is my focus for the next couple of years, to brand that and to focus on that, hoping to get National Geographic involved with that, to document all these areas, Dead Sea, Red Sea, Dead Sea, Jordan River, and the Sea of Galilee. That's the route that needs to be focused. And by the way, that's, like I said, a lot to get into. Prophecy, the prophecy of the Dead Sea is actually talking about that, of connecting all these seas together. And it's interesting for me, by the way, to realize, I did research about this, a lot of interpretation of the prophecies in different languages, interpret the Hebrew language to different languages. Sometimes the wording themselves are different words. And that's why a lot of the projects, having fundamentarian straight to the Dead Sea, is according to prophecies, but not reading it right, not reading it correctly. And what I mentioned here about the Arabah is actually the Jordan River, and mentioning in this prophecy is the Sea of Galilee, and it goes all the way around, starting with the Big Sea, which is the Mediterranean Sea. So that's, I know also, in terms of prophecy, that's the right way angle to be looking at, looking up north, which is part of the solution of saving this place. And they're saying that 2050, we're going to have a small pool of salt. That's it. That's why showing my son over there, it became very personal, because once my son was born, I started this project of measuring the Dead Sea. And like a month ago, my son started walking for the first time. And the first thing that went through my mind as he's walking, I've been documenting the sea going all the way down. So while I'm seeing him growing up, seeing the Dead Sea going down, I'm not sure that he'll be able to experience the Dead Sea when he's a full adult. So this is just being realistic right now. So, like I said, you guys are asking all the questions about the Dead Sea, which is great. Any other questions about Sderot or anything like that? Yeah.
Thank you. How does that area by Haifa compare in distance to the Dead Sea as compared to the length of the Panama Canal? It almost seems like it might be smaller.
That's why.
So it should be logical to
right.
do.
It's the most logic. That's the most logic. Solution is actually having canals from this area towards the Sea of Galilee, instead of having all the way from the Red Sea going uphill and going all the way to Amman, which is right over here. Like we said, it's the biggest project ever been done. It's going to be done in the world for having a canal desalinization plant. Nobody knows the effect it's going to have on the environment, on the Arava, for the Dead Sea. Nobody knows the effect of it, but that's the entire focus. There's no focus whatsoever right now like we said, on the Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, because right now all the water is going to be taken by Jordan because they have no water. So, like I said, right now it's not realistic, but looking to the future, that should be the aim and goal and focus for the next couple of years. Yeah, I mentioned this. My first boat ride, my first boat excursion, we went onto the land, seeing sinkholes with fish inside. Maybe do I have the pictures of the fish? I mean, it's a little hard to see because they're literally very small. But just seeing this from up close was something amazing.
Hey, Herod invented a solution several thousand years ago with the aqueduct. Like you said, wouldn't it be cheaper just to build an aqueduct from the Mediterranean to Galilee? And
Yeah, I do not know about that specifically, but it's a good point. It's a good point because, yeah. And seeing, by the way, the aqueduct underneath our house, 2,000, bringing water from the Judean desert, from Gush Etzion area, from Judea, all the way to Jerusalem, to the temple. And the fact is, this was the only way of bringing up water in 2,000 years. Once Israel actually came back, developing that, but all the, Palestinian Arabs are saying that they have no water. They never developed the whole water situation. Only when Israel took over the Judea and Samaria and Gaza, it's only then the population actually had water in their tap in their sinks and houses, because Israel actually developed that. Until then, they were dependent on the 2,000-year-old aqueduct for water. It's an interesting thing to see today. So that's a good point. I'm not sure. Like I said, there's a lot.
Desalination plant and just run the water on an aqueduct over to the Galilee from Haifa.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too simple.
Yeah.
We had a geographic problem.
Good point.
Because
Yeah. I don't know all the way to that details, but it's a good point. And so it's good that I also hear from people as well what could be done. But like I said, looking into the future, also hearing what needs to be done is very interesting to be a part of. So it's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah. Last question, and then whoever wants to come up, they'll come forward or be back over there. Yes? You want to give this mic? No question. Okay. What I have, guys, in the back, like I said, you guys are more than welcome to take a souvenir. Like I said, I brought it for you guys specifically. So thank you so much. You guys are literally you guys are more than welcome to be in touch. Please be our voice and face. Please be in touch with us when you come to Israel. I'd love to host you in our house, in our region, show you guys firsthand on our boat excursions on the Dead Sea, showing us the human side of the story in Sderot. This is our main work today. In Sderot is showing people around and seeing things firsthand. And it'll be wonderful keeping in touch with you guys. So again, thank you so much, and great opportunity.
Let's give them a big
being
hand.
here.
Thank you. Just another, let me try this mic. Just another quick reminder, a couple weeks we're going to have two Israelis right here called Between the Lines, and so we want to let all of you know to make sure to invite your friends, and you're going to have a very exciting time hearing from them as well. So thank you very much.
I can mention one last thing. Whoever does believe in the cause of what's it called, of educating the next generation in a more creative kind of way like we saw here today, what I do have here is what's called a standing order. I asked for $18. $18. Anybody know why 18? Why did Jews use $18? 18 specific? There we go. Hi, thank you, Mark. Hi, life. So all the amounts here is with $18 to make things a bit more, for good luck and for a good reason, for a good cause. And we don't ask for much, but for us to have a standing order, we could always plan for the future. Everything has been done privately. And we have the government endorsement, but they know that we could do what they cannot do, all the pressure from the world, international, whatever. We could do their work and just do it because this is the calling, this is the right thing to be doing. And speaking about Israel in any ways possible, speaking the truth, giving us the strength to keep on doing it, is what motivates us to keep on doing this. Whoever does believe in this cause, I have what to show for it, for having a standing order. You guys are more than welcome. Whoever's interested is more than welcome to fill up the form here as well. Okay, so bless you. Wonderful being here again. And looking forward to spending the time here in Seattle. All right, thank you so much, guys.